This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment, where they pride themselves on equipping their customers with the tools they need to get the job done right. They are dedicated to set the standard for quality, convenience, and reliability. At Tallman, your opinion is important to them. Rate and review any product or tool you've used on their new website at tallmanequipment.com. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for our first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. A proceed of the cost goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing on Instagram. And last but not least, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. I also would like to thank Southeast Lineman Training Center. It is a premier school for line worker training. SLTC produces an elite group of highly trained and certified graduates equipped with the knowledge, discipline, and ability to have successful careers in the electrical utility and communications industries. Learn more at lineworker.com. Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast. This has been created for hardworking fathers. At the Show Up Dad, we recognize that fathers providing for their children is certainly important. But when men truly understand their unique role and gain the knowledge and skills to be great fathers, they can transform and impact future generations. Today, our special guest is none other than Sara Reijonen. She is a proud line wife, married for 15 years with no children or pets. Sara has spent the last decade on the road with her rambling lineman husband, Spanky. Spanky and Sara live out of their fifth wheel and go where the work usually is. Okay, mostly in Northern California. Since 2009, Spanky and Sara have been to 40 countries. Sara studied journalism at Washington State University. And let's see, she was inspired by her husband and the freedom the line trade offers. Sara is passionate about teaching young people that a college degree is not the only path towards success. Sara is also the creator and author of the Tiny Tradesman book, Light Up the World, a book that introduces children to line work. Welcome to the Show Up, Sara.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you're able to come on here. You know what I mean? We discussed earlier how, you were not feeling the greatest, you know what I mean? But glad to have you on.
Yes, I will survive and prevail.
Absolutely. Can I have you tell our audience a little bit about your childhood as you remember it, Sara, if you don't mind?
Sure. My childhood was awesome. I spent a lot of time making forts in the woods and playing sports. I was kind of a tomboy, digging in the dirt for like potato bugs and worms and everything, but also pretty girly at the same time. I liked putting on fashion shows after my grandma took me to Kmart shopping and theme dressing for television shows. Like I would go throw on my bathing suit when Baywatch was on and throw on this like evening gown when the 10 Commandments came around at Easter time. And my parents, we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, but I knew that my parents loved each other. And now that's something that I realize is more important than having a nice house or nice things. But that was kind of hard for me. Like when I got to high school at that level, I was a little bit embarrassed about where I lived and not having all the things.
Do you think that was more along the lines of just seeing friends have stuff that you didn't have? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's always hard. I mean, just as a kid, especially now, you're always comparing yourselves to others. That tends to be something we do. And now I know a good saying that says that comparison is the thief of joy. So I realize that now. But it was just kind of tough. I mean, I had a small single wide mobile home that I grew up in, 800 square feet. So needless to say, it's easy to live in an RV now because I'm used to living in small spaces. But yeah, it totally prepared me for this lifestyle. And I didn't realize that that's what I was being prepared for. But here I am.
Yeah, life has a funny way of just doing that. You know what I mean? If you look at all those,
sure.
if you look at all those small details, you'll see that there's more to it. You know what I mean? There's a grand scheme to everything.
Oh yeah. Yep. Definitely.
What are some of the earliest childhood memories you have of your father, if you don't mind?
My dad is super active, and so he's always been a runner, and I grew up like riding my bike alongside him
Mhm.
because I was too slow to keep up with him when I was really little. Legs weren't quite long enough. Um, and then as soon as I got a little older, I would run with him, and he would kind of like do laps and circle back to me, and
Mhm.
just like so I could keep up. And then finally, we get to the point, where we're running together, and now I'm faster than him, but he still has a lot of miles on me. He's like, mid 60s, and he'll run like 100 miles in a month. I'm like, you're crazy, dad. um but yeah, so really active. He taught me how to play a bunch of different sports. I was really into like softball and tennis. And every Sunday I was at Sunday school, church, and then we went to church softball practice right after that. um I wasn't allowed to play on the team, but they let me start practicing when I was like 7.
Mhm.
But I couldn't actually play till I was like 13. It was torture. Um, and then we would play tennis after softball practice just for fun, me and my dad. And then after that, we would go to church choir practice because he also sang. We did a lot of like duets together and stuff when I was little, and
Mhm.
a lot of our people that we went to church with remember me that way.
Mhm. And it seems like he was very involved with you, and that's important for a
Oh
daughter,
yeah.
for a
Oh,
daughter for
for
sure.
sure.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, how, like, when he spent time with you, did you guys feel like a bond there? Like, the more he spent time with you, did he, like, when you're with him, right, during
Hmm.
those times, because I've had a past guest talk about how daughters need relationship before they
Yeah.
ever have any structure, right?
Hmm.
So with that relationship, with him building it, just spending time with you and, getting to understand you better, you know what I mean? Letting you know that you're important to him, stuff like that. You know what I mean? That probably just really drew you to him. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural to be a daddy's girl. I mean, that's a saying for a reason. But
Mhm.
but yeah, for him to invest so much into me and spend so much time with me also really drew me to him, like you said. And yeah, it gave us a special bond. And another thing that really I gave us a special bond was like my dad's adopted.
Mhm.
And so my sister looks like my mom and I look like my dad. So for him, I'm the older one, and I'm the first person that he knew that actually looked like him. So that was always really special for us, I think. And he told me that before, like, oh, you're the first person that I saw that looked like me.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, I just love that we can share that.
It's funny how that goes because, like, my daughter Nakota, she looks exactly like me,
Mhm.
and she's hard headed just like me. And man, both
Yep.
both her and I, we just butt heads.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm totally stubborn like my dad too, but but we have like the same general beliefs in politics, so that helps. So we don't argue too much.
Yeah. That's good though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just goes to show that he had that much influence on you. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
Now, do you think that influence from a father like that is based upon him being able to spend time with you? Do you think
Oh yeah.
that's okay?
Yes. I think time is the ultimate expression of love.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you don't give anybody time, then they don't know that they're loved. So I
Hmm.
think there's all the time that he poured into me. And he was always, he coached my baseball teams all throughout my childhood. For my sister too, he coached her baseball and soccer teams, and he didn't know how to play soccer. So I
Hmm.
mean, he's just picking things up and helping out where he needed to, where he was needed.
Hmm. And it's crazy because I had another past guest who, he was like 13 out of 14 kids, great friend of mine,
Huh.
and they didn't have much growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what caught me is that, like you, the dad was always there.
Yeah.
They didn't have much at all, but the dad was always there, whether it be for football or for wrestling or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He spent that quality time.
Yeah. Yep.
It seems like these days though, like, fathers are so busy and mothers are so busy that
Mm-hmm.
they try to placate their children by giving them devices.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Like, if that's going to suffice for their time not spent with them. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. It's not a good substitute. It's not a
No.
it can never replace the parents' love for sure. Or just the lessons that you learn from them. I mean, I just learned so many valuable lessons from my dad too.
What are some of those lessons you learned, if you don't mind?
Um, well, I guess I would get to this, but just to always give it my all, and always work hard. Um, he was always just like adamant about, okay, if you're gonna go try out for this team, then I want you to like hustle, hustle, hustle. Like if your coach is saying, all right, come on in, you're running in to meet your coach. You're not dragging your feet, dawdling in. You're gonna run there and you're gonna be the first one there. And and that always helped. And I stood out because that even if I wasn't very good at that sport, you know, they wanted me on the team because they knew I was gonna listen and I was gonna try my hardest.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Just that hustle, that what your
Hmm.
father teaches you and stuff like that. Those are all adamant qualities,
Yeah.
that only a father can teach, really.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's one of the things about a father that I think people, even fathers, tend to not understand is you are so important,
Yeah.
whether it be for your growth and development of your children or for protection or for being for provision or whatever. We have so many roles and so many hats that we got to wear. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for how important we actually are, you
Oh,
know?
definitely. Yeah.
Do you think that that's one of the things that's happening in society today, that our roles are being diminished, and with like shows like The Simpsons or even Al Bundy, where the father kind of is like this oaf, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
not really taken serious, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. That my parents taught me a lot about, they went through the whole Love and Respect series
Mhm.
and talked about the importance of, a woman needs love and a man needs respect. Well, yeah, these characters aren't getting any respect, and they aren't really do a lot of respect because they are kind of, like you said, kind of goofy characters that, oh, never get it right or just shouldn't be taken seriously. And yeah, I do think that diminishes the father's place in the household.
I wanted to ask you, Sarah, how did your father interact with your mother? And how do you think that influenced your choice for a husband?
um, so my dad has pretty much always treated my mom like a princess. Um, which there's good and bad things about that, right? He opened doors for her all the time. He gets whatever she needs when she needs it. So when I went out looking for a mate, I think I had that same vision in mind, right? But I wanted someone who would treat me like a princess, which that's what my name means, by the way. So my parents always tease me about that.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, well, you're the ones who named me that. So you didn't want me to become some princess, which I don't think I am, but I'm like, well, then you shouldn't have named me that.
Right.
um, but yeah, so I thought I wanted that, but it's not really what I needed. And
Mhm.
then comes my husband, Chris, who we call Spanky. That's been his nickname forever,
Mhm.
from the Little Rascals. Um, and he's treated me great for sure. He's a great gift giver, super romantic, affectionate, but he doesn't open doors and he does not hold my purse or luggage. That's not happening,
Hmm.
right? But I have really come to appreciate that over the years because it's made me so much stronger and more independent, and it's prepared me for this lifestyle as a line wife. Like if I had someone catering to me all the time, I wouldn't be capable of doing some of the things that I have to do.
Mhm.
So
No, and I think also too, it just comes with the territory, because I don't do those things really either for my
yeah,
for my wife.
right.
But I think, like you said, she always tells me that it's toughened her up, even
Hmm.
being on the road and being out of town, which is extremely hard for her all the
Yeah,
time, you know. It really toughened her up. I mean, my
right.
wife had to learn how to chop wood and like make kindling and stuff like that
Yep.
to heat the house, because
Yep.
we used to live in the country, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it definitely got her out of her comfort zone,
Hmm.
to where she had to learn how to stand on her own 2 feet, literally,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know. But I definitely see that, being a lineman, and just seeing that, where in our trade as linemen, everybody's got to carry their own weight.
Yeah, for sure.
if you're a, a slouch or whatever, you're not going to last long on that crew.
Yep.
They're going to give you dose checkies and see you down the road. you know?
Yep.
So,
Uh,
but that's really cool to see. That is to see how that level of influence that your father had on you kind of helped you to find your husband, your mate now. You know what I mean? What else did you pick out, like characteristics that you picked out in your husband that you see your father have?
oh, my husband doesn't want to hear this, but I'll say that all the time. Oh, that's like my dad. He's like, don't say that. But he loves my dad. He thinks he's a great guy, of course. But yeah, the sense of humor is big for me. My dad's goofy. He's a total goofball. My husband is goofy with a little more refined sense of humor, I think, or maybe something that appeals more to me in our generation, right? So he's just a funny guy, and he's super quick-witted, and yeah, that's something that I just had to have. I had to have somebody funny that I could laugh with or laugh at, or that would laugh at me.
Especially when times get hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being on that right away, we gotta, days suck sometimes,
Yeah.
your long, hard days, and, someone will crack a joke or something like that. And then next, everybody's laughing, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that your husband, like, carries that into your guys' relationship with that wittiness, like you're talking about, and just keeps things fresh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lighthearted.
Yep. Yep.
You know, I think more than ever, people are too stern. I'm guilty of that myself, where everything's, you know, my wife called it lineman mode. So I'd come home and I'd just be like, we need to do this, don't wasted moves, blah, 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 blah. And she'd be like, hey man, I'm not your apprentices.
Yeah.
You need to chill out,
Yeah.
but you got to definitely have that balance.
Yeah, for sure.
What are, other than what you discussed earlier, what are some other things that your father taught you that you carry with you today, as far as decisions and stuff like that you've made?
Um, well, I would say definitely my faith is one of them. Um,
Okay.
yeah, my parents are both Christians, and I grew up in a strong Christian household, so they definitely instilled me with faith. And I've always returned to that. Of course, I've strayed over the years. College, of course, people kind
Mm-hmm.
of go off the deep end there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no different than that, but from anyone else. But yeah, I came back to it, and just it's always there. And I know, I know that's a total foundation in my life, and I wouldn't have it without my dad, and his leadership and guidance in our household.
Mm-hmm. And is your husband a believer as well, or?
He is. But he pushed me to make my faith my own, and like
Mhm.
really not just believe because my parents taught me to, but to
Mhm.
really like have a deeper understanding and like ask questions. He's very curious and has lots of questions. And that's challenged me to question a lot of things too, in a good way. I mean, God
Mhm.
can handle our questions.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, it's just taught me to question things and search a little deeper.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
That's pretty cool. That, like I said, man, I just gotta commend you that you and your husband, that your husband challenges you that way.
oh
You
yeah.
know, it's crazy because you say these things and it's like, yep, he's a lineman. You know what I mean? Because as linemen, we ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yep.
Good linemen do, anyways. You
Yes.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we're not too proud to say, hey, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Explain to me. I want to know why. Why is it doing this? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And that's admirable. It
Yeah.
really is. So hats off to your husband for that.
Yeah. And he's taught me a lot, because I mean, I struggle with that because I am prideful and I
Mhm.
don't like to ask a lot of questions. Even though I'm a journalist, you would think that I would like to ask more questions, but I just that's a struggle for me. It's always been one.
What made you go into journalism?
Um, I just always loved to write.
Hmm.
And I just from like seventh grade, probably I would say I knew I wanted to be a writer. And I just started going down that road. I worked on all the school newspapers from junior high through high school, got into college, was on the student newspaper there all through college. Um, And I loved writing, and I loved telling people stories. And I've always just wanted to give a voice to the voiceless, I guess.
Mm.
That's been my passion. I used to write this coffee column in college that was so fun. I would like roll up to Starbucks or whatever coffee shop in town and just pick a random person and sit down with them and just ask them their story. And
Mm.
then I would share it in our little weekly column, and people loved it. It was so cool. It was a neat thing though, because it was terrifying for me. I was so scared to talk to this random person and
Mm.
try to get their story out of them. But they always ended up being the neatest stories from just so many unique people. We all have a story.
Hmm. No, for sure. We all do have stories. And I got to agree with you because I mean, I never thought I'd be doing this. I mean, we started
Yeah.
when was it? Last January, as we did our
Mm-hmm.
first podcast. And it was out of my bedroom at our old home on an old dingy laptop with one foot on the door, hoping the kids didn't come in and, start fighting,
Right. Yeah.
until where we're at now with the radio station and, different
Mm-hmm.
sponsors and stuff like that. It's really cool though. But to get back to what you're saying, people have stories, and
Mm-hmm.
I love being able to mine that story out of them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it takes work.
Oh, yeah.
It really does, being able to ask them questions and get them past
Mm-hmm.
their comfort zone and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. Again, you have to ask good questions and
Mm.
listen. I mean, people don't, that's not really a technique that we have very much anymore. Like listening is not, um, it's a lost art, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. One of my board members, because we're a nonprofit, he told me, he's like, David, he's like, oh, now you're doing your podcast. He's like, but what you got to understand is podcasting isn't about talking, it's about listening. And I didn't understand him at first, but
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with him now, especially what I've learned about just listening. You know, people have the tendency of just wanting to talk and not listen, right? It's almost like they're
Right.
setting up the question, or they're listening only to answer and hear themselves talk, if that makes
Yep.
sense. You
Yep.
know.
Yeah. And they're just ready to say the next thing, but they
Mhm.
didn't actually hear what you said.
Exactly.
It's like you were maybe listening, but I don't think you really heard me.
Right, exactly. And it's hard. It's hard,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I
it
turn my brain off on autopilot sometimes and do the same thing.
right. My wife does that to me sometimes
Right.
too.
Yeah. When you start talking line work to her, is that it?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. I know
It's
my husband starts saying, I'm like, what did you say? I don't know what you're talking about.
That's funny. Did he I'm sure, like, driving down poles, he's like, oh, I built that one. I built that
Oh,
one.
always. Yeah, for sure.
I had a guy tell me the other day, because that's one of the jokes as a line wife, is that their husbands are always talking about, oh, I built this pole. I was on top of that pole and stuff, right? And it's a level of pride,
Oh,
to
yeah.
say, hey, I did that. It looks good.
Yeah, I love it.
And he got upset. The guy got upset. He was a young guy, of course,
Yeah.
he's a one county boomer, and he got upset. And he's like, oh, your wife doesn't appreciate you telling her about, all the lines you've built. It's boring her to death and yada, yada. And I'm like, dude, it's not about that. It's about having pride in your job. It's about
Yeah.
having pride in your work and what you've done. And a good line wife will know that and understand that,
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
So, but,
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. I do. I've taken pictures of him with poles that he's really proud of before.
that's awesome. Oh man. What inspired you to write that tiny tradesman book that we're talking about?
Well, my husband that we've been talking about for one.
Mhm.
I just, like I said, I really admire his hard work, and I
Uh-huh.
see the pride he has in the trade. And he truly loves his job. I mean, how many people can you really say that about
Mhm.
anymore? But the idea was also sparked by a conversation with my childhood best friend. She has two young boys, and neither her nor her husband are very handy. That's what she says. Not, I don't say that about them, but
Mhm.
but she wants the boys to be exposed to other career opportunities. So we just started talking about the trades one day, and she expressed her desire to open her boys' eyes to that world. And a light bulb went off, and I just was like, oh, I could maybe do a children's book series, which that was never, I never had that idea or that thought before, because I mean, I don't have kids, so I just didn't think that I
Mhm.
was qualified for that job.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I also have a 4-year-old nephew, who loves to build and watch things work, and I just love to watch him. He's so curious, and the way he studies things. So I also wanted to write it for him and for all the other kids out there who prefer to work with their hands and might not be meant for life behind a desk.
Mm. So is that why you're so passionate about teaching these young children about the trades, like as an option to college, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it is. And I do think that there's more than one way you can be successful. I think that it's a huge lie to tell kids that the only way they're going to be successful is to go to college.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, I went to college, but that's because I knew I wanted to be a writer, and that was the avenue that I chose, and it was the right option for me. Maybe it's way more expensive than when I went, and I don't know if I would do it again today. Um, and just some of the weird things that are happening in universities right now, but it's just not a good option for everybody. So we need to make that we need to broaden the conversation, and tell kids that they have other options out there, that the trades are definitely a great option,
Mhm.
and we can't make this world work without the trades. So yeah,
No, I agree with you. We're the backbone of America, all the
for sure.
blue collar men and women out there that are working,
Yeah.
it's crazy how I remember growing up, garbage men were garbage men, they rode on the
Hmm.
back of the trucks. They would get off and they look cool. They ride on the back, like where I grew up, they'd ride on the back of the trucks, right? They'd
Yeah.
jump off, they'd pick up the trash, throw it in there and just jump back on the back of the truck, and that's kind of the way they did it. And all of a sudden that disappeared.
Hmm.
And then like all kinds of different trades just started, I don't know if it was automation or what. It
Oh yeah.
just started going away, and
Right.
then everybody wanted to go to school. I'm guilty of that. I have a degree in computer networking, when
Yeah.
I got out of the military, and I hated being inside.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated. I was
Yeah.
freaking out, and kudos to the people that can do that. I mean, we need them
Oh
too,
yeah. Right. For sure. Yeah. I don't discount people that get get a college degree.
Mhm.
But I don't think that the trade should be discounted either.
I wonder though, like, where did it go to where a blue collar person, like now it's the trends. I'm sure you've noticed it, Sarah.
Hmm.
Now it's cool to be blue collar. Now you have all these blue collar, the trade brand. You have a blue collar heroes. You got all these different clothing
Yeah.
lines and everything. Um, different clothing lines. Supporting the trades.
Right.
And it's actually turning cool again.
Yeah.
But back in like I think it was like the 90s, it was just like that ain't cool. You don't, you need to go to school and
Yeah.
yada yada. I wonder why that was.
Right. I mean, I think there's still some of that, but um I don't know. I think there's just such a push with there's a college is a big money maker too. So
Mm,
I think that's the push really, is to I mean, all the millions of dollars in student loan debt that we have in this country. Um
mm.
yeah, a lot of that's kickback. The government gets a lot of kickback from that. So I think there's a
Hmm.
vested interest in getting kids into the university system.
No, I agree with you with that 100%. I always talk to a couple of my friends who have all kinds of like student loans and stuff, and
Right.
they're always telling me, they're like, man, if this student loan forfeits, they still have a insurance on it to where they still recoup their money.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost like a 2 for. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They get paid twice on that
Right.
student loan. It's a money making gimmick.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It ain't no different than big pharmacy, big you know
big companies, the internet companies and Google and all them, it's all the same thing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
everybody has their hands in the cookie jar.
Yep. Yep.
Greed is something that cannot be quenched.
Nope.
you know. Um, Now I wanted to talk to you a little bit about being on the road. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what are some of the benefits you experience as a line wife living on the road?
Um, well, just outside of the road, well, I guess this is the road too. I
Mhm.
mean, we've had uh tons of exploration. Like we get to travel all over, which I love.
Mhm.
So that's been a huge benefit. Just the line life in general and doing contract stuff. It really has freed us up to travel the world as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, like you mentioned earlier, um, Spank and I have been to 40 countries and just had so many awesome adventures. And the trade made that possible because we
Mhm.
are able to save up lots of cash and take off months at a time and then go right back to work within a few days. So it's like, it's
Mhm.
just perfect for the lifestyle that we want to live, you know?
That's crazy. 40 countries.
Yeah.
What are some of the most unique countries you've been to, if you don't mind?
Um, Unique. Well, as far as like my favorite countries, I would
Mhm.
say, I don't know about unique, but New Zealand is one of my favorite countries.
Mm.
It's really beautiful, like super outdoorsy. It's just, yeah, it's pretty. You can hike. We've hiked everywhere there. I love Chile, Patagonia area as well.
Mhm.
Um, my husband and I used to do like so our first trip that we did, we lived in Northeast Washington and we had 80 acres in Elk, Washington, which is north of Spokane.
Mhm.
And he was finishing his apprenticeship up there at the PUD, and I was working at Gonzaga University in the athletic department doing their communications. And it snowed like crazy snow that winter and the last winter. And I was going crazy. I was like, I can't live here anymore. This place
Hmm.
sucks. There's
Cabin
like,
cabin fever.
oh my gosh, there's like 4 feet of snow on my birthday, April 21st. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I was laying on the floor crying. My husband's like, are you okay? He's like, let's go somewhere, wherever. And it was actually Easter weekend too. We just bailed on our family. We're like, we're gonna go
Wow.
somewhere. He's like, pick a place. We're like, okay, I just want to go to Cannon Beach, Oregon. That's like a fun, nice, calm place. So we drove to Cannon Beach and stopped in Portland on the way to visit my best friend from childhood. And she was telling us about a friend and her husband who had just traveled, were on a trip, a 9-month trip around the world. And we heard that, my husband and I, and we're like, whoa, that's cool. And then on our way home from this road trip to Cannon Beach, we were both like, man, that would be so cool if we could travel around the world like that. And then
Mhm.
we started thinking, like, well, why can't we? Like you're about to get your journeyman ticket and I can just quit my job, you know? I mean,
Mhm.
I love my job, but it's a job, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I didn't really care. It was like, okay, if we can go on this awesome adventure, I'd rather do that.
Right.
So we started planning and we decided, we were going to parcel off our 80 acres. My husband and his dad did some logging to thin and pay the bills. Um, and then a year later, we planned we were going to sell it all off and travel around the world for 7 months. And that's what we did. So
Wow.
that was our very first venture out the door. And like, yeah, we traveled around the world for 7 months and I haven't looked back.
Man, it seems like I mean, definitely, it's a life of adventure, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that is so cool. Um, with that being said, you know, it seems like you guys like to do a lot of hiking. You talked about a little bit about
Yes.
Patagonia and stuff like that. Were you
Yep.
guys into like trekking before or
No, not a lot really.
okay?
And then somehow it just happened. It's we did our first initial trip and we did all the touristy things we were supposed to do. We ticked all the boxes, right? Like, oh, we got to go to the Louvre in Paris and we got to go all these museums. I mean, by the time we were done in France, we were like, no more museums, please. I'm so over it.
Mhm.
So, but we both realized like we want to be outside and in nature. That's where we are the most happy and that's where we feel the most alive. So it's really, that's what turned us on to hiking and, doing more of the outdoor stuff. I mean, my husband always grew up doing all the outdoor stuff. Like he grew up hunting and fishing and
Mhm,
doing all that, so that was natural to him. Um, but yeah, just adding more of it into our lives.
mhm. No, for sure. That's really cool that he was able to find a trade where it so totally just fits his type of persona and stuff like that. Because
Mhm.
I mean, me and my younger brother too, he was a lineman as well. Um, we grew up hunting and fishing, and we're pretty rambunctious as children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden we're both linemen as well.
Uh-huh.
So it's really cool to see. We are definitely cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
As linemen and as brothers. Which
Yeah.
is really cool. Um, with did you guys go to Chichen Itza at all?
Yes, we have been to Chichen Itza.
Okay, cool. How'd you guys like
Um,
that?
it was cool. Yeah. We actually, that was like probably our first
Mhm,
one of our first international trips before that big trip.
mhm.
Um, my husband's aunt has like a timeshare thing down in Mexico, so we do that a lot. Um, but we've done a lot of awesome hikes too. Just, we've hiked Machu Picchu, which is pretty cool in Peru.
Oh yeah, for sure. My wife always talked about Machu Picchu and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
one that's like it's the ruins that are up in the Andes, correct? That's really, really
Yes.
high. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so the highest pass you go over, it's called Dead Woman's Pass, which
Wow.
doesn't really build a lot of morale,
No.
but it's about 14,500 feet.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that's the highest I've been. Well, I've been there, and then we also hiked in the Himalayas
Hmm.
in Nepal, and we went to do the Annapurna circuit, and
Oh.
the highest there is the same as Everest Base Camp. We were supposed to go over this pass,
Mhm.
Throngla Pass, that was like 17,000 something feet, but we got to like the spot right before that, and it was like 14,000 something, and then I got sick. We had to turn around, so that was a bummer.
Oh, for sure. No, that's crazy that you guys have been to
Uh,
so many great places like that.
yeah,
That is so amazing. That's awesome. You
yeah,
know, um, so we talked about the benefits, right? Those are some of the benefits
right.
of living on the road. What are some of the challenges you have to overcome as a line wife?
um I would say there's been a lot of lonely moments on the road. uh my husband, we're in the RV, so I go where he goes, so it's not like he doesn't come home every night. He usually comes home every night and is in his own bed unless there's storm or something. um but just during the day, finding my own way around new places and making friends, and that's always difficult when you're first starting out. And then also just like having to reinvent yourself constantly. I'm not somebody who can just like sit around.
Mhm,
So so I have to go find something to do. Um so it was always finding like new opportunities and challenges for myself. Um so I've done like freelance writing for a gold mining magazine. Like I said, I worked at Gonzaga for a while. I've poured wine in Lodi. I got my personal trainer's license. And then I wrote another book that was actual travel memoir about 10 years ago.
mhm,
So you just have to stay busy. That's something that I've had to overcome, is just like
mhm,
the quiet moments of, okay, now what am I going to do?
mhm. And that affects everybody. I mean, because like I never really understood, like when my wife, she'd complain about being home, and I'd tell her, I'd be like, man, you got it made.
Yeah, right.
How many friends do you have that know that they can stay home with their kids? They don't have to work, and their husbands can
Exactly.
go to work. And as husbands, that's what we think, right?
Uh-huh, right.
And then I stayed home one time because my wife wanted to really go to work.
Mhm.
So I let her go to work. I was like, okay, you go to work. Let's see how you like it, and
Yep.
our roles reversed, right? And it was crazy, man. I have never worked so hard in my entire life. I had 3 kids. It was in the midst of COVID. It was during the lockdown, the pandemic. So now
Oh
I'm
man.
I'm like basically homeschooling these kids. They're on Zoom, right? But
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, it was insane,
yeah.
and I just take my hats off to all the women out there who do that for us, you know, because we couldn't do what we do without you guys, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
You know, with that being said, you know, you talked about like staying busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Staying busy. Okay. Now, my wife always talks about like, because she goes through that too, where she's like, even now, like, you know, we live in Southern California now, and she's at home and with
Yeah.
the kids again. And now she's like, man, I don't have no friends, you know, yada, yada. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, you know, and like you said, I like that. Reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, she don't know anybody here or nothing like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, what do you do? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you do? Like for her, she stays busy, right? Because she's got to deal with the foundation and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So she gets all the guests and everything like that and gets all it all lined down. That's a lot of work on itself,
Right.
you know. But I think for her, it's more about like having friends. Like she's just like, man, I really don't know anybody out here and don't have friends. How did you cope with that? Like, you know, or is that something you still struggle with, you know, when you go to a different area?
Yeah. Well, my husband picked up on women for me. We have this.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. I think there's a theme here. I guess a lot of husbands do this. I don't know. I didn't know this is happening everywhere, but yeah, when we first were in my oldest friend here in like Placerville area now, which is where we are now. I met her when we had a house here for a little while, like 10 years ago or so. And we would go to this restaurant. It was the closest restaurant to our house that we had at the time. And this gal was there, and she was our server, and she seemed really nice, whatever. But I went to the bathroom and I didn't know this was happening. But apparently when I went to the bathroom, my husband was like, hey, my wife needs some friends. Will you be her friend? He didn't tell me that for a while, you know, afterwards, because I would have been totally mortified. Like, oh my gosh, seriously? But she's super sweet, you know? So I come back and she was like, hey, she's like, do you have any friends here? I was like, no, I don't. She's like, are you a Christian? I said, yeah. She goes, me too. Let's be friends. And I was like, okay. And we've been friends ever since. And she's just like the sweetest person. So, you know, some of those have been like random, and she's introduced me to people. And then just getting out into, you know, working in the gym, getting out there and working at wineries and getting out there and I just meet people there. And then also like, a lot of times, you know, you end up in parks with other line wives, which doesn't always happen, but man, when it does, it's like such a huge blessing. Like it's just so fun to be in that community. Like we were in a park in Sonora a couple years ago, and there were like probably 5 or 6 other line couples there. And man, we just like did life together, you know? Like we had potlucks all the time and birthday parties and watched Super Bowl together, and it was so much fun. And then I did like a little, you know, boot camp for the moms, for the line wives, and, you know, brought all the babies and laid them on the grass, wherever, you know. But yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, you just have to figure it out. You just have to find your way. It's not always easy, but there's other lonely people out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Especially line wives.
Yeah. Seems like it comes with the trade, you know, and
right.
it's crazy, you know. So it sounds like you're a busy person, right? I mean,
Yes.
you don't let anything really stop you. I mean, you're a porter, you know, you've done all kinds of stuff. You went to Gonzaga, you know, you've done so many different things on your bucket list per se, you know. How do you navigate your dreams around your husband's schedule? How does that work?
Oh, I laugh about this because I'm like, it's more like, how do I get my husband to work with all the dreaming and travel he has in mind? Like, I'm just really blessed that my husband works hard, but he wants to play harder. So he always has to have something on his calendar to look forward to, at least every couple months, if not every couple of weeks. So it's really more like planning when he's going to work and making sure we get enough work in our season and not too much play. I'm like, okay, babe, you got to go back to work now because we're out of money.
Mhm.
Like we just spent all of our money traveling for 4 months. So back to work.
That's that. But I mean, that's such a great thing, though. We have that option
Yeah.
as
Oh, for
linemen, you
sure.
know. Um, that's crazy that he plays hard like that, and
Oh, yeah.
that's really cool. And I think just to agree with what he his thoughts on that are is that as men we got to have a goal.
Yeah.
You have to have an end in sight.
Yep.
If not, you just work yourself to the bone, and then
Oh, yeah.
you're a slave to the job, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of husbands, a lot of linemen, a lot of fathers that are out there doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
You know?
he's definitely an anomaly in the trade, I think, because
Mhm.
any guy could do what, anybody could do what we do and travel all the time, but a lot of
Mhm.
people don't. They just get so sucked in and just, all the money is great. So it's
Mhm.
hard to turn down. And when you think about it, in terms of, well, if I take off, I'm not getting paid, then, well, that's just a dangerous, slippery slope too. Then you're
Mm.
just counting all the dollars you're losing while you're on vacation, which is a
Mhm.
bad way to spend vacation.
No, for sure, because your mind's always out,
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Oh,
Um,
I could have been working. I could have made three grand this week, whatever, it's like, oh, don't
mhm.
think like that.
No, for sure, and it does trouble you like that, where
Hmm.
you're looking at it from a stance of, man, do I take this job or do I go and work and make 5 to 6 grand a week?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy, you know?
Yeah. And you have to make money. I mean, that's a reality. But
Mhm.
how much do you have to make? Like have a cutoff. Like, how do you really, do you need 1 million? Do you need 2 million? Do you need 5 million? What's going to really make you happy?
Right?
Or, y- and again, what's going to make you happy? Is it really going to be the money, or is it going to be the time that you spent with your family, getting to see your kids play their, baseball games or whatever, or
Mhm.
building relationships with your friends? Like, I mean, a lot of our trips are just really building relationships because we just have so many amazing friends all over, from Alaska to California and Washington and across the country. And we are constantly trying to invest and make sure that we're spending time with those people, and just keeping those relationships alive and thriving.
Mhm. And that's amazing though, because you're touching the lives of so many people just even through this podcast, being on here, through your book and just traveling. You know what I mean? That's a ministry if you really think about it.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so.
You know? Do you and your husband plan to have children later on or?
Um, I don't know. The verdict's still out on that.
Mhm.
We've always said since like the day we got married, I think we've been like, oh, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 5 years.
Mhm.
And it's been 15 years that we've been married now. So
Mhm.
so I don't know. We love kids. And like I said, we have all these friends who most of them have kids now. So we have tons of kids in our lives that we just love and cherish and get to pour into their lives. And we have three awesome nephews that we adore. Um, and we try to invest in the kids in our lives
Mhm.
lives. We actually started something uh probably, what is it, like 6 years ago now, I guess. I had heard about a woman who she's a travel blogger that I follow, and she did something called the Niece Project, where she wasn't married, didn't have any kids, and she was gonna take each one of her nieces on a trip anywhere in the world when they turned 15, I think it was.
Mhm.
And so my husband and I were like, well, that's an awesome idea. We don't have kids, but we would love to, get some of the kids in our lives to get out and travel and also like grow our relationships with them.
Mhm.
So we decided we would take my husband has a half brother and half sister who are younger than him. And then all of our nephews, we said we would take them on a trip of their choosing anywhere in the world when they turn 15. So
Wow.
so we've taken two so far. We took his sister to Africa when she was 15.
Oh, wow.
And it was just so amazing and just really like solidified our relationship with her. I mean, because
Mhm.
we would just see them at holidays and not really, and they're quiet kids, they didn't really talk a lot. So then we're like, oh, hey, here we are in this hut in Africa. Now you kind of have to talk to us because we're stuck here together for a
Mhm.
couple weeks. But yeah, we had an amazing time. And then we took his half brother a couple years back to French Polynesia. And so we did, like Tahiti, Bora Bora, all those. It was an awesome trip as well. So, we don't have kids, but we try to really invest in the kids that we do have in our lives.
And it's so important too. Because like just looking back, right? And growing up, my father, he was a blue collar dad.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of money, but he would save. Him and my mom would both save. And every summer, without a doubt, we would go on vacation. I mean, we saw Mount Rushmore, we saw Yosemite, we went to Chateau Lake Louise. I've been to Canada 4 times.
Yeah.
We were everywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We were like the Griswolds. Seriously. And he would take us. I mean, that was his deal. He would save money.
Yeah.
And then he would take us. And then I'd come back and I'd share it with the kids I went to school with. And man, they would have these eyes. They'd be looking at me like, man, I wish I was you. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the time, it made you feel good. And you're like, oh yeah, my daddy did this or whatever. But now thinking about it, I mean, man, those little kids, they probably wanted to go too,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
What an awesome experience that you're providing for the people that are around you, the children that are around you. I mean, that is really cool. I mean,
it's cool that we're just blessed to be able to do that. So,
Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this book. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you could share with our audience, you're going to do a book giveaway. Is that what I understood this week? Correct?
Yes. Yep. I posted on Instagram. So, if you just like Tiny Tradesmen, like the Show Up Dad, and then share that post, you will be entered into the drawing for a book.
Okay. And the drawing will be next Sunday, I believe, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, once again, guys, this is David with the Show Up Dad. I just want to thank my guest, Sara, for coming on here. Thank you, Sara. Tell your husband I said hello. I look forward to meeting you guys one of these days down the road.
For sure.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate what you had to say and just being able to open up and share with our audience about everything you do.
Awesome.
You're an inspiration. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And the line community has just been so awesome in their support.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, Sara.
All right. Thanks.